Well, from July 1976 to July 1977, a series of New York City shootings left 6 people dead and 7 wounded. Now, New Yorkers lived in fear and terror as the manhunt went on and on. The killer left some notes at the crime scenes, once calling himself the Son of Sam, and law enforcement finally connected postal employee David Berkowitz to the murders in August 1977. Now, Berkowitz engaged in satanic cult practices, which drove his decision-making, and was eventually sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder to which he confessed.
Okay, not only were the crimes heinous, that's obvious, but the grin on his face, even after his arrest, made people question his mental health state. So what does spending 45 years behind bars do to a serial killer? The former Colombo crime family boss, Michael Franzese, he decided to find out. He went to the correctional facility on Monday where he was. He sat down with the now 70-year-old serial killer. Let's take a listen.
Let me ask you though, because at that time, people didn't, clinical depression, you didn't really recognize it.
No.
Like you do today.
Yes.
You weren't on any medication or anything
No,
for that?
no, nothing. No.
So it wasn't even recognized, really. It was just something you were dealing with.
I didn't think I needed any help with anything. I was trying to live my life, but I was showing some signs of disturbance.
All right, well, joining now is former capo regime of the Colombo crime family and author of Mafia Democracy, Michael Franzese. Michael, of course, we just saw you sitting down with Berkowitz, of course, known more broadly as the Son of Sam. And, I have to ask, he's up for parole again coming up in May of 2024. Just talking to him, before we get into the details, do you think he might be actually given parole? Many people say no.
No, I don't think so, and he has no expectation of being paroled. As a matter of fact, he stopped going to his parole hearings, but then that was viewed as kind of a slap in the face to the parole board, so he started going just to go. But he has no expectation of being released.
Why did he stop going?
Because he knew he was never going to be paroled. He's kind of resigned himself to the fact that he's going to spend life in prison, so he didn't go. But again, from past experience, I know if you don't show up, they look at that as like you're snubbing, your nose in their face. So he started going and listening, but honestly, he has no expectation of being paroled.
Obviously, these heinous crimes happened many years ago. He spent a long time in prison. Has he showed, or does he still, and I've read that he was remorseful or turned remorseful at some point. Did he have anything to say to the families that he changed their lives forever and he hurt so badly?
Well, I can tell you this, it was obviously a disturbing visit, but it was also satisfying because he said, I'm not here to make any excuses. I take full responsibility. I just want to explain what happened. And he talked about his childhood and the things that led up to that. But yeah, as a matter of fact, he's very remorseful. I know it's genuine because a very dear friend of mine who is a clinical psychologist has visited him, spent over 100 hours with him, and very remorseful to the point where he actually met with the mother of one of the victims. And he showed me a number of letters that she wrote to him. Her name was Moskowitz. And just saying that, she forgave him and she realized how sincere he was in wanting forgiveness and that he's deeply remorseful for everything that he did. You can see it in him. I mean, it was sad, but you can see it in him. And I totally believe that he's been transformed. I really mean that.
And I know, and I want to get to this, I know he found God years back,
Yes.
and that he attributes a lot of that for his, I will say, rehabilitation. But before that, you mentioned in that clip that we heard mental illness and
Yes.
how the prosecution dealt with mental illness at that time. I know that they still deemed that he was fit to stand trial, even though he had been diagnosed, I believe, with various mental illnesses.
Yes, and if you hear his history, which I'll go through, in an extended video later on in October, if you hear the history and what he went through psychologically and mentally, that led him up to, at one point, being involved with a group of Satanists that were kind of leading his thoughts and his mind. He doesn't blame them, but he said they kind of took over his psyche. And if you hear his childhood, some of the things he went through, again, not making excuses, but making an explanation for what he thinks drove him to do what he did. It's very sad. Mental illness is without a doubt, a serious issue, and I certainly saw that in David.
Obviously not an excuse, though, for what he did and all the
Not at all.
families that he hurt. Simple question here. Why? Why go talk to him?
Well, he read my book, my autobiography. He got it in the prison library several years ago, so he knew about me. We're both Christians, we both had a transformation in our lives. And he was really attracted to that, and he kind of got in touch with me through this friend, David Berkowitz, who actually wrote a tremendous book about him. It's called Monster Mirror, and it'll be out later this coming month. And he reached out and said, "Can I see Michael? I'd love to see him." So that's how we got. The prison actually allowed me to come in. Normally they don't do that, and it was a tough environment. It was tough to record and do everything that we wanted to do, but we got the best that we could. We spent 2 hours together, and it was eye-opening for me because, when I was on the street, the NYPD actually came to us and asked us for help to try to find him. And there was one night in Queens where we thought we had him. Some guys in my crew had said, "We think we got him." And we actually close, we just missed him. And unfortunately, a few days later, there was another murder.
Wow.
But, yeah.
We have another little clip from your interview, and I love that we're able to kind of sneak peek these before you release the entire thing. David Berkowitz, of course, talked about the people he was hanging out at the time. You referenced that, who introduced him to those cult-like activities, the Satanism. Let's listen to it in his words.
And I met some other people that said, wanted to find friends. I ran into some bad people that were not, they were just into some occult stuff, and it sounded interesting to me. And so we used to go to Pella Bay Park once in a while and just hang out and meet there and smoke dope. But this time I was, working, I was trying to make ends meet, and just a lot of life pressures. It was just a very vulnerable time.
Said it was a scary visit, but also an enlightening one for you. I guess seeing truly one of the most infamous serial killers. But you said you could tell from listening to him and looking at him that he does have remorse, that he maybe isn't the same person he was. Do you attribute that to some of the maybe mental care that he's gotten throughout his time in prison, or more because he, on his own, found God and rehabilitated himself?
Well, as a Christian who's gone through pretty much of a transformation myself, I believe it's totally God at the center of this. You can tell, you can hear it, you can see it in him. He's quoting Bible verses to me as he was talking, the things that inspired him from the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs. And, again, as a fellow Christian that underwent pretty much of a transformation myself, he was very sincere, very honest about it. I believe he's totally transformed. And again, I really want to make that point. He expects to stay in prison for the rest of his life, took full responsibility for everything, said, "Michael, I make no excuses. Even though I did have these mental issues, I did it." And he's very remorseful. As a matter of fact, we couldn't even talk about the crimes themselves. I saw how painful it was if we even got into that. So I let it go. Everybody knows what happened there. But yeah, very sincere.
Interesting stuff there. Obviously, one day, if he's a Christian man now, he'll have to meet his maker.
Yes.
And your book there, lifted up for us here, sir, Mafia, Democracy. Yes. You can pick up a copy. And Michael Franzese, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
For joining us here on American Agenda.